TV 13 wishes you a happy Hanukkah.
As President Reagan vacations in California, there's a behind-the-scenes effort to find a replacement for CIA Director William Casey.
NBC Nightly News, reported by Chris Wallace.
Good evening. Ever since Bill Casey had surgery for a brain tumor 10 days ago, there has been serious doubt that he would ever return to the CIA. But officials say President Reagan refuses to consider replacing his old friend while Casey lies in a hospital bed. Now, it turns out some White House officials are looking for a new CIA director, whether the president wants them to or not. White House correspondent Robin Lloyd reports.
Before leaving Washington, the president gave strict orders to his staff not to discuss any possible successor for CIA Director William Casey. But sources within the administration say Chief of Staff Donald Regan is quietly spearheading the effort to find a replacement, reportedly leaning toward other cabinet members to take over the job. Among those being mentioned, Secretary of the Treasury Jim Baker, Secretary of Energy John Harrington, and Secretary of Interior Don Hodel. Other possible candidates like UN Ambassador Vernon Walters and former Deputy Director of the CIA Robert Inman are also still being considered, but some sources say they are now less likely to get the job. Hospital officials will only say Casey is conscious and is sitting up, but officials acknowledge that it's unlikely he'll ever return to work. This comes as the new National Security Advisor, Frank Carlucci, continues to pull together his new team, with insiders saying it will be a more tightly controlled NSC than the one headed by Poindexter or McFarlane. Conservative allies of the president praised his appointment of former NATO Ambassador David Absher as the special advisor on the Iran crisis and say the president appears to be starting to regroup.
But I think it would be a mistake to write off the last 2 years of the Reagan administration. The president's a very resilient man as a politician, and it seems to me he's been fairly aggressive in pursuing the investigation of this matter.
But former White House counsel under President Ford, Lloyd Cutler, disagreed and said the Iran crisis will affect all future foreign policy initiatives of the administration.
But it will, I think, dominate events and weaken the presidency for some time to come.
For the first time since the crisis began, the president will have a chance now to meet with many of his longtime political allies when he stays at the Palm Springs estate of Walter Annenberg. Close advisors like pollster Richard Worthland say the president is well aware of comparisons with Watergate.
I wouldn't say that it's something that plagues him, but I do think he recognizes that there is always the potential of something like this to do a considerable damage to the presidency.
Some former White House aides believe the president is running out of time and that the White House staff under Reagan so far has failed to pull together any new policy initiatives to refocus the country's attention on other issues.
That's why it's so pressing upon the White House staff, upon his administration, to pull itself together, stop fussing with each other, and look at the serious problems that still remain in this country and say, we've got 2 more years, gentlemen, and we better get moving.
But White House aides admit their frustration over what steps to take next and say one of the reasons they haven't developed a strategy for next year is that they don't want to plan any new initiatives when the president is going into the hospital in another week. Robin Lloyd, NBC News, with the president in Los Angeles.
And coming up on NBC Nightly News, Mordecai Vanunu pleads innocent to charges he revealed Israel's nuclear secrets. Car sales are red hot, while buyers can still deduct their sales tax. And an inside look at something called outsider art. It may look primitive, but it's suddenly very fashionable.
My son recommended Preparation H for my hemorrhoidal symptoms. Why should I listen to a kid? That kid is also a doctor.
In a national survey, 2 out of 3 doctors named Preparation H among the hemorrhoid remedies they recommended to their patients.
Doctors know best.
Are you waiting for Prince Charming to make you rich? Come on, darlings. You could make $10 million all by yourself with Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. Enter right away because the winning number will be announced on TV this January the 29th. And that's soon, darlings. So look for the little house because only with Publishers Clearinghouse can you win $10 million so fast. So enter.
It's Pontiac's year-end blowout, and that's something special. Hot savings on these Pontiacs equipped with optional air conditioning. Pontiac's made it possible for Pontiac dealers to pass along special savings of up to $675 on Sunbird, or up to $775 on Fiero, Firebird, or Pontiac 6000. All equipped with air conditioning. You must take actual retail delivery from dealer stock by December 31st. This could be your last chance to deduct sales tax on your federal income tax if you itemize, so see your Pontiac dealer today.
Hey, denture wearers, if you love your Paladin green, would you smile? If you love your Paladin clean, would you smile? Super Strength Paladin Green. You'll love the way it gets your dentures sparkling clean. So smile.
Israeli investigators have cleared Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir of any involvement in the beating deaths of 2 captured Arab terrorists in 1984. The deaths sparked a scandal in Israel, and those responsible have never been identified. Mordecai Vanunu, a former Israeli nuclear technician, pleaded innocent today to charges of treason and espionage. Vanunu is accused of leaking Israel's nuclear secrets. And as Martin Fletcher reports now, officials there are making sure there are no more leaks.
The opening of the secret trial of the alleged nuclear spy Mordecai Vanunu was like a real-life game of cops and robbers. Amid heavy security, a police van with painted windows and a blanket behind the driver passed the waiting press into Jerusalem's court. But Vanunu told his lawyer he'd actually arrived 3 hours earlier. The aim of the elaborate deception to avoid a repeat of last week's trick by Vanunu. Then, as he was driven past the cameras, Vanunu pressed his palm to the window. Written were the words, "Hijacked in Rome, 30th of September." That supported reports Israel's Secret Service had snatched Vanunu in Europe and forced him to return to Israel. He'd sold Israel's alleged nuclear secrets to a British newspaper. After today's secret court session, Vanunu's lawyer couldn't say much.
I can't give you any details about it. He pleaded not guilty.
Vanunu is accused of treason and espionage for allegedly giving away details and photographs of Israel's top-secret nuclear installations in the Negev desert. With the information he gave to the London Sunday Times, British experts estimate Israel is the world's 6th largest nuclear power, despite Israeli claims it doesn't have a nuclear bomb.
Israel will not become the first country to introduce nuclear weapons to the Middle East.
Nuclear experts believe that even if Israel doesn't already have a live atom bomb, it could put one together in minutes. Israel's what they call a screw turn away. One lawyer observed that Vanunu's trial, instead of silencing discussion about Israel's atom bomb, only focuses attention upon it. The trial continues in 6 weeks. Martin Fletcher, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
Islamic Jihad today denied a claim made in its name for the attempted hijacking of an Iraqi airliner this week, in which more than 60 people were killed. The group said any message it sends to the media will include a photograph of a hostage that it's holding. Today's statement was delivered to a news agency in Beirut, along with this picture of American hostage Terry Anderson, a photograph very similar to one issued by his kidnappers last month. A Middle East peace mission by American Cardinal John O'Connor hit a serious snag before it even began, and Israeli leaders are disturbed by the turn of events. Jennifer McLogan reports.
The news that John Cardinal O'Connor would not be able to meet officially with the President and Prime Minister of Israel because of Vatican instructions stunned Jewish leaders. The Cardinal's sudden shift in plans created a diplomatic furor in Jerusalem today. Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir reacted swiftly, saying he hopes there will be no conditions placed on the meeting. For his part, he said there will be no concessions. As he departed New York for his long-planned visit to Israel and Jordan, the Archbishop of New York said he could not meet with Israel's top officials in their Jerusalem offices, but could meet them unofficially in their homes.
The last thing in the world that is involved here is any animosity. Has it been an unfortunate sequence of events? Of course it has. Have there been mistakes made in the scheduling? Absolutely no question.
It was a snub. By whom? I don't know. I'm confident that it was not by Cardinal O'Connor.
Israeli leaders say the changes appear to be intended to eliminate any hint that the Vatican is having official contacts with the Israeli government, or that the Catholic Church recognizes Israel's control over Jerusalem.
It's sad, but promised to be a spiritual trip, a constructive, a healing trip, turns into a political trip.
I should have researched this more carefully, but as you have seen in New York, that's the way I do things, and then we pick up the pieces afterwards. I think you said that they are still upset. Yes, I don't blame them. Yeah, I don't blame them. I would be upset.
Traveling as the president of the Catholic Near East Welfare Association, Cardinal O'Connor arrived today in Amman, Jordan, on the first leg of his trip. A trip designed to foster goodwill in the region. But now some Israeli leaders privately suggested O'Connor's impending visit to Israel has been so tainted by what they described as Vatican politics that under the circumstances, it might have been wiser for the Cardinal to have stayed at home. Jennifer McLogan, NBC News, New York.
Imagine the power of two great computer companies coming together as one. Resources not just doubled, but raised to the power of two. Introducing Unisys. True competition in the computer industry, and a single winner will emerge. You.
Tums doesn't have it. Rolaids doesn't have it. Maalox Plus does. We have what you need for complete relief of excess acid, heartburn, and gas. You need Maalox, America's #1 antacid for excess acid and heartburn, plus the #1 reliever of painful gas pressure. Now both come in handy roll packs of Maalox Plus tablets and fast-acting liquid. Compared to these others, only Maalox Plus has all that, plus a great Swiss cream flavor. Get complete relief. Try Maalox Plus.
This is it, the last chance to enter this sweepstakes from American Family Publishers. Grand prize, $10 million. The big day when I award America's first $10 million sweepstakes prize is almost here, just 2 months from now. Last chance to join these American Family winners of millions. Look for the sweepstakes with my picture. Don't pass up your last chance to enter. This February, I may be awarding you $10 million.
NASA is developing a crewed escape system to provide a way out of the space shuttle. Astronauts would be pulled out of a crippled spacecraft by miniature rockets. This is a direct response to the Challenger disaster in January. But NASA concedes it would have been of no help to the Challenger astronauts because this new system is useless in the first 2 minutes of flight. Car dealers are finding this weekend there's no time or reason to make a hard sell because customers are eager to buy. This change in behavior can be traced to a change in the tax laws, because starting next year, sales tax will no longer be deductible. Reed Galen found buying fever on car lots in Los Angeles.
Eileen Wiley wanted a new car anyway, but she feels a lot of pressure to go ahead with it now. Los Angeles dealerships have been reminding her that sales tax will not be deductible next year.
Reading in the papers and everything, and I hate to think about in maybe another week or so that, you know, it's like throwing money away.
Dealerships that over the last few months haven't been taking many customers for test drives now are busy.
Take an example of a mid-price car of $15,000 or so, the sales tax deduction could save you $300 to $500. If you can get a deduction, it's no different than getting a rebate from the manufacturer or the rebate from the car dealer. This time it's just a rebate from the government.
Okay, the automatic fabric master.
Sales of other consumer items have also picked up, though tax savings alone certainly would not justify purchases.
When you think about it, it's not a whole lot, but you know, the savings can very well buy you a shirt, a tie, a pair of pants.
In other areas, timing can make many thousands of dollars difference. Changes in the capital gains tax have investors selling securities and real estate holdings now. Others are buying property to take advantage of depreciation schedules that become less favorable next year.
People who are doing real estate activity for tax reasons are probably I'm seeing about twice as many people as I did before, say, 6 months ago.
With 100 million tax returns now being delivered, there are many examples where consumers are paying now for next year's goods and services, when many deductions will be eliminated.
Magazine publishers and other people promoting the fact that you could prepay several years subscriptions this year.
Pay now, save later is kind of a unique concept for American consumers, isn't it?
Right. It goes against the normal grain of logic of waiting as long as you can to pay all your bills. And
for Eileen Wiley, the choice was simple. Give it to the car dealer now or give more to the IRS later.
Well, you're an owner.
Reed Galen, NBC News, Los Angeles.
New York City's Mayor Edward Koch was heckled by whites at a church meeting today when he attempted to calm racial tensions. A black man was killed in a New York City neighborhood a week ago as he fled a gang of white attackers. Mayor Koch has called for a national commission on racism. A thick blanket of fog sat over Atlanta's Hartsfield Airport for hours this morning, causing flight delays all over the U.S. Hartsfield has more flights than any airport in the world, and this morning's fog, with less than a quarter of a mile of visibility, caused 120 of those flights to be delayed, some for up to 2 hours. Those delays, in turn, backed up flights nationwide. Airline officials said the whole system may not be back to normal until sometime this evening. Chrysler Chairman Lee Iacocca has said once again he has no plans to run for president. But this time he's given a new, typically blunt reason for staying out of the race. Iacocca says the budget and trade deficits are creating an American economic crisis and, quote, "I'd be damned if I know what to do about it." Popular mystery writer John D. MacDonald died today of complications following heart surgery. He was 70 years old. MacDonald was the creator of the Travis McGee novels, of which 30 million were printed in the U.S. alone. He wrote 77 books over 40 years, and many, like his award-winning novel The Green Ripper, included a color in the title. But his most recent big success was the suspense thriller Condominium.
When you need it most, you can get extra strength relief from acid indigestion with extra strength Riopan Plus. In lab tests, it neutralizes twice the acid as regular Maalox or Mylanta. It's that strong. You can also get extra strength relief from heartburn with extra strength Riopan Plus. Ounce for ounce, it neutralizes twice the acid as regular Maalox or Mylanta. It's that strong. Extra strength Riopan Plus. Regular strength, too.
Want to know what Old English Oil can do for your paneling? I won't tell you. I'll show you. Look, I'll write on this paneling with Old English Oil. See the difference? Old English Oil moisturizes to help prevent drying and cracking. It helps bring out the beauty of wood and gives a rich, natural glow to all your furniture. And it's so easy to use. Old English Oil, a beautiful way to help protect against drying and cracking.
The time, right now. The place, your Mazda dealers. The event, Goodbye 86. We're saying goodbye with good buys on all our 87s, 323s, 626s, even our X7s. And right now, special factory cash incentives can save you hundreds on 87 B2000 trucks. Buy now, while sales tax is still deductible. But hurry, the end is almost here. Visit your Mazda dealer for a good buy now. Don't let time run out.
In Manila, there was a new twist today to the weekly demonstrations against President Aquino by supporters of Ferdinand Marcos. The protesters burned copies of Time magazine, which selected Aquino as Woman of the Year for leading a bloodless revolution. Condemning this alleged interference in their internal affairs, the demonstrators said, Time magazine, get out of the Philippines. After days of mass student demonstrations in China, officials there have announced local election reforms. But as Steve Mallory reports now, the government seems more interested in appearance than true change.
Authorities were surprised by the size and number of student protests in China this month. Demands for democratic reforms and freedom of the press were equally surprising. Now, officials in Beijing say that within 6 months, some city elections will be more democratic. They're permitting more than one candidate to run for a seat in some minor municipal elections. At first, that too appears surprising. The announcement comes a few days after authorities imposed tough restrictions on public protests, which have largely curbed the student demonstrations. A modification of some election laws suggests that the government is giving in to the students. But the timing of the announcement is probably designed to diffuse student frustration. They lost their right to protest. The election reforms have been planned for years. China's top leaders announced in 1980 that changes in election procedures would take place. In recent years, restrictions on the number of candidates permitted to run for a single post have been eased. Some have not been required to be Communist Party members. Sweeping changes are not underway, and the students didn't get any concessions. Their protest just may have, at the most, encouraged China's leaders to announce reforms earlier than planned. Steve Mallory, NBC News.
Gale force winds blew a train off a bridge west of Tokyo and sent it crashing into a factory, killing 6 people. The excursion train had just let off its 180 passengers when 55-mile-an-hour winds sent 6 cars toppling. A crab meat processing plant 135 feet below the bridge was destroyed. 5 workers and a train conductor were killed. 6 other people were hurt. Relief agencies are doing all they can to keep the people of the Sudan from starving to death. But critics say by trying to solve one problem, they are creating another one. John Cochran reports.
The people of Sudan face a new danger, not hunger or war. Those are the old dangers, still present but hardly new. The new threat comes from, of all places, relief agencies, which in their zeal to do good seem to have overestimated the extent of the famine. This fall, relief camps were set up for these people who desperately needed help. But United Nations officials estimated 2 million more Sudanese also faced starvation because of drought and civil war. The UN then announced Operation Rainbow, which was supposed to airlift food to people cut off from help. Having been caught off guard by the Ethiopian famine 2 years ago, relief officials were determined not to make the same mistake again.
And I felt humiliated, like many of my colleagues. Well, this time it won't happen.
American officials agreed the situation required immediate action.
The U.S. was one of the original contributors to Operation Rainbow from the very start, along with the Dutch.
But the airlift never happened. Neither the Sudanese government nor the opposing rebels would promise safe passage for the plane. The Red Cross, meanwhile, launched its own investigation into how much food was needed. The surprising answer was not much. And some Red Cross officials feared that free food from the outside world would disrupt the shaky economy and force Sudanese farmers out of business at a time when their crops are doing well.
Sending food now to this place in southern Sudan will create problems instead of solving problems. So it will be much more efficient to talk about medical supplies and even vaccine for the cattle than talking about food supplies.
Until the civil war ends or a ceasefire is declared, reliable information will be difficult to come by. And until then, honest people will honestly disagree on whether southern Sudan needs emergency food. John Cochran, NBC News.
The Observer newspaper in London reports South Africa is planning to build a mile-long airstrip on a remote island off Antarctica, and with Israeli help may test nuclear weapons there. South Africa denies it even has nuclear weapons and says the island runway would be a link to a scientific station that is already established.
Everyone has limitations. All that varies is the degree. I guess I've been a reasonable success for a guy that, a little over 20 years ago, that got taken in a city ambulance with everything I owned in a paper bag from one hospital to another hospital so that I could stay there the rest of my life. Today, if people ask me if I lead a full life, I tell them, well, I'm a father and a husband. I have a job as a systems analyst with IBM, not a handicap systems analyst, a systems analyst. There's an award called Handicapped American of the Year. The president selected me to receive it in 1985. It was an honor. But my goal is to make possible the day when my children will read that plaque and not understand why Dad was given an award simply because he's blind and in a wheelchair. Because they'll already know there's more than one way to see and more than one way to get from here to there.
The story of Jim Caldwell has been brought to you by IBM.
I'm Jane Pauley. This week on Today, Freed Hostage.
What do you call someone who doesn't enter the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes? Silly, that's what. For heaven's sakes, darlings, the jackpot is $21 million, and the first prize for $10 million, well, some smart person could win it on this January the 29th, and it could be you. So look for the little house because only with Publishers Clearinghouse can you win $10 million so fast. So enter.
Finally tonight, the story of a small-town artist who is attracting big city attention. Howard Finster paints his vision of the world in the backwoods of Georgia, he says with divine guidance. As Kenley Jones reports, that work is now being sold for big prices in New York art galleries.
Nestled among the Georgia pines in the small community of Pennville is the world's folk art church, the home of 70-year-old preacher-turned-artist Howard Finster.
God showed me how to paint with tractor enamel, and that's what I do, and people likes it.
Finster says he had a vision 10 years ago in which God told him to start painting sacred art, even though he never had any training as an artist.
And so I've been right at it night and day, 10 years just with cat naps, you know.
His works now number more than 5,000, almost all of them reflecting Finster's fundamentalist religious beliefs.
All I'm trying to do is to get the people on this planet to realize there's another world. I have visions of other worlds.
Before he took up art, Finster had spent years cultivating what he calls his paradise garden. 2.5 acres of odds and ends ranging from cartoon angels to wagon wheels, from teepees to tapestries, all of them devoted to spreading the gospel as Finster sees it. At one spot, rising from a pile of abandoned bicycle and lawnmower parts, is a rusting sign of the cross.
Finster says his work proves that junk can be made beautiful, keeping in mind, of course, that beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
In art galleries around the country, like this one in New York, Finster's works are considered beautiful enough to command prices ranging up to $2,500. He has become recognized as an important figure in what is called outsider art, the work of artists who have little formal education and who usually take up painting late in life.
He will be considered, I think, always one of the great figures of the 20th century in outsider art.
I'm not interested in being famous. I'm not out for money. I'm not out for anything except do that I'm commissioned to do while I'm here.
Finster says his paintings have enabled him to reach more people with his message during the past 10 years than he did during his 45 years as a preacher. Kenley Jones, NBC News, Pennville, Georgia.
And that's our report this Sunday night. I'm Chris Wallace in New York. Good night from all of us at NBC News.
Tonight, as your family gathers for the holidays, start a new family tradition at our house.
Come home for the holidays.
Our house. Then the Sound of Music starring Julie Andrews and a special holiday treat for the whole family. Winner of 5 Academy Awards, The Sound of Music, tonight.